Hi, this is Lauren from Axilent. This is another in a series of screencasts we're doing showing you the Axilent platform. Today we're going to be looking at workflow for content types. Now in a previous screencast we had looked at how content types structure content using their fields. Today we're going to be looking at workflow. Every content type has an associated workflow, and through that workflow content can be edited, processed, and deployed. So I'm going to show you how to actually edit the workflow for a content type. In the content types section of Axilent, you just select a content type here and go to the settings tab and hit edit workflow. There's no steps yet for this particular content type, but they'll all show up in a list right here. So I'm going to go through here and show you the most common types of workflow steps that exist. So you can add a new step by hitting the plus button right here and then select the type of step right here. So let's start with review step, which is really kind of the beginning. A review step puts the content into the inbox of users of Axilent, and it will show up in the inbox of people that have roles that you select right here. So in this particular project we only have one role, admin, and if I select that, everyone with the admin role in this project will see any content that hits this particular workflow step. So here it is, contribute. And this is really designed to be the very first step in the workflow. So this sets it up so when someone creates a new piece of content, it's sitting at the head end of the workflow in a review step where it'll be accessible to people. So let's add another kind of step here. Now look at process steps. Process steps apply automated processing to content. So let's give this a name. I'm going to call this sanitize. And we have currently two types of process available. Sanitize text and auto tagging. We are going to be adding more in the near future. Sanitize text goes through the content and makes it web safe. So it will remove any HTML markup in there that it declares unsafe. It'll remove any scripting. It'll change Unicode entities into a format that it can be shown on the web. Now, one of the things is you need to let the step know which fields are going to be addressed. So we're going to add what's called a processing pipe. What processing pipes do is they identify the fields that should be processed by the automated process and where the output from that process should be written to. So the source field is where we should be reading the incoming content from. And we'll say we want the body where people are typing the bulk of the comment in this case, and we want this to write out also to the body. So what will happen is when content hits this particular workflow step, it will read from the body field, it will sanitize that text, making it safe to put on the web, and then it will write it back into the body field. And that's a processing pipe. And that's all we need to do for that. Now we have one other kind of process called auto tag. You can name these whatever you want. It doesn't have to match the name of the process. Auto tagging is a little different, and actually you don't need to add any processing pipes to auto tagging. It doesn't care about them. With auto tagging, the idea is that you can take a subset of your entire data and manually go in and tag that subset. And then for the rest of the data, rest of your content, send it through auto tagging. And the auto tagging step will examine the content that you've tagged manually and take the content that's passing through the step and compare it to what you've already tagged. If it finds a sufficient degree of similarity between the content passing through the step and the content that you manually tagged, it will then take that tagging and automatically apply it to the content that's passing through the step. This is exactly the same technology as the way Bayesian spam filters work. It's a Bayesian classifier. With spam filters, there's only two categories. There's spam and not spam. In this case, every tag represents a category, and so it is comparing the content passing through with essentially a category of content, which is that has been tagged with a particular tag. It's finding sufficient similarity inside that, then it'll go ahead and automatically apply that tag. So it's a pretty cool way of extending human judgment and making it scale out to deal with a large quantity of content. So let's then add a deployment step, and this will be we want to publish this content out. So go deploy to production. Again, you can name these steps anything you want. And all we do with the deployment step is choose one or more deployment targets. You can actually simultaneously publish to multiple targets if you want, and perhaps one of those targets might represent your website, another target might represent a mobile app, that kind of thing. You can add as many as you want to an individual deploy step. And save that. And then finally, let's just add maybe one more review step at the end. Call that in production. And this is just kind of a place for the content to sit after it's been deployed, so it's easily accessible to us. Now the review step, so we just choose a role. And that's kind of our workflow for the whole thing. Now the only other thing we might want to do here is let's say we have some external system outside of Axilent, and we want to integrate Axilent with it, such as when content passes through the workflow, when it hits a certain stage, it's sent out to an external system. Maybe it's a search engine, and you want to have it be able to search for things. You would be able to do that with what's called a webhook step. And let's give it a name like search index. And what it'll do is it will give you this form where you can define a URL, and Axilent will post the content out to this URL, and then it will wait for the response to come back from that, and from the response it will write in a new version of the content. So if you modify the content in the external system somewhere, Axilent will then record the output from that. And it's looking for a JSON representation of the content in both cases. That's what it'll post up, and that's what it's expecting back. So you can put in a URL. Rollback URL, because workflow can move forwards and backwards, rollback URL is what is called when it hits it in the opposite direction. So if you want to, I don't know, like index the content as it moves through the step, but if it moves backwards through the step, then it de-indexes the content. You might put a different URL there. Or maybe rollback does nothing, you just leave that blank. These are optional. If you need to authenticate with that external service, you can put in basic HTTP auth user and auth password values right here. And then async is an interesting thing. It's a special flag, and if you leave it unchecked the way it is here, then when Axilent posts its content out to the external system, it will wait for that system to respond. It will be expecting a JSON payload representing the content item back from the external system, and it will record that all as part of one request response cycle. However, if you click on the async flag right here, it will post out the content and it will not wait for a response. In fact, it'll ignore any response that comes back from the server. At that point, there is a special callback API, in the Axilent library API, and you'll be able to call that and post the response from the external system there, and then it'll pick it back up again and continue on the workflow. And so this is for external processes that are expected to take a long time. You don't want Axilent's HTTP client to time out on it. So what it'll do is it will post it out, and you can take as long as you want doing whatever external processing you're doing, and when you're finished, post it to the callback URL, and it'll get picked back up again. If it's something fast, it's not worth doing that. Just put the data in the response, and we'll pick it up there. So now that we have all this set up, you can see if we hop over to the inbox and we create a new comment. Give it some data here. Hello world. This is my comment. All right. And you can see down here in the workflow controls that it has the workflow we set up for it. It's starting on contribute, going to sanitize. Now, one thing that's important to understand about workflow is that it will just keep on going through the workflow steps until it hits a review step. So your review steps are also kind of a way to make the thing stop processing. So I'm going to send this on, and once I click this button, it will pass through sanitize and auto tag automatically, and it'll wind up actually in production. It'll go through sanitize, auto tag, and the deploy to production step. So here it goes. All right. Here it is, and you can see it's now in production. And actually, if you want to check that, check the deployments, and you'll see here it is. The production step picked it up and sent it out. You're probably not going to see any tags because we don't have anything else tagged. Yep. And the text was already pretty HTML safe, so that's okay too. Okay, that is a brief introduction to workflow in Axilent. This is an extremely powerful feature. You really can do this to do all sorts of automated processing and routing and integration of content. You can get to be very creative with it, and this is actually going to be one of the areas that we'll be doing a lot of work on, putting out new and different kinds of workflow steps to assist you in managing content. So expect to see a lot of development in that area. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for listening.